Hi guys, it's Fightsci here with yet another video, and today we are talking about PEDs in boxing and why they're such a problem. Let's break it down. Now, we're going to talk about the most recent debacle / scandal in boxing when it comes to PEDs, Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. Let's break it down. Now, to actually even understand PEDs in boxing, we need to first understand what I guess you could call them drug collectors or piss collector agencies actually do, the informal term for them. But companies like USADA for the UFC and VADA for boxing, what they actually do when they collect someone's piss. Basically what these companies actually do is they quite literally just collect your specimen and send it to an actual drug testing laboratory. My friend explained it. I cannot name off the top of my head exactly what the drug testing agency is. If you give me a second, I'll look it up. But essentially what they do, I'll explain this first. Essentially what they do is they take your specimen, they send it to a drug testing agency. There's one in Utah, and there's only two in the whole world. There's one in Utah and one on the other side of the world. I forgot exactly which country it's in. But basically, I think like Sweden or something. And they basically send it there to get tested and to review the contents of your specimen. That's basically what these companies do in a nutshell. They're not, USADA and VADA are not actually testing your specimen. They're literally just sending it to other like literally just some drug testing facility in Utah. That's about it. Also, the name for the drug testing agency, I just looked it up. It's called WADA, for anybody that was wondering. The one in Utah. But also, in order to understand the current situation we're dealing with, we also need to understand the history of PEDs in boxing. Let's break it down. Now, basically, the more recent history of like major drug scandals in boxing came in the last 20, 30 years, I believe, with Balco and Victor Conti. Basically, if you don't know who Victor Conti is, ironically, he actually made the framework or the blueprint for like drug collecting for VADA. That's why drug testing in boxing is shoddy, to say the least. It's been theorized that even though Ryan Garcia was tested for PEDs, that Haney was probably also on PEDs. The fact that he rehydrates so much, he's probably on like IV drips or something, which are strictly prohibited in MMA and boxing. And Victor Conti's also in Haney's corner. And basically who Victor Conti is in a nutshell, and obviously this whole video is basically off the cuff because I'm I wouldn't say very knowledgeable in this subject, but knowledgeable enough to a point where I can kind of speak off the cuff. Basically who Victor Conti is he helped a lot of athletes shoot up, anywhere from like boxing to baseball. I know there's a couple of baseball players that are caught up in Balco. In terms of boxers, Shane Mosley, I believe Roy Jones was one of them, and a plethora of other boxers were all caught up in Balco. It was a huge scandal in, I believe, the late 90s and early 2000s, and it's very ironic that Haney and Victor Conti are calling out Ryan Garcia for being a cheat, even though Haney has Victor Conti in his corner, and it's kinda obvious that Haney is on something himself, even if he's not on PEDs specifically. He's taking IV drips for sure. He went from an average sized lightweight to literally basically a full-fledged welterweight in the span of a couple of years. But let's continue. The only other point I kind of wanted to make for the intro is VADA, and who made the blueprint for boxing's drug collecting company, Victor Conti. I mean, I kind of already explained that, so time to move on. So, the first part of, I guess, you could kind of call it the body, the main part of the video that I wanted to talk about was how to actually spot someone on PEDs, because I feel like a lot of people don't know how to actually do this. So, I'm going to probably show you a couple of examples of someone who I believe is not on PEDs and someone who I believe is on PEDs. And obviously I'm not an expert on this shit. I know I'm not on PEDs. I think I would consider myself in pretty damn good shape, but if you see me in real life, you'd probably say, oh yeah, that guy's kind of, you know, brolic, but he doesn't look like he's juicing. He's not like in incredible shape, you know what I mean? But let's continue. So to my knowledge from like bodybuilders, the three main telltale signs in someone that takes PEDs is someone that they either have a big bull neck, they have a lot of veins, and they have like a lot of like really bad like back knee and like a lot of bad like acne like all over their bodies. I kind of, not guilty of this, but I have like bad acne on like my chest. Not bad, but I definitely still have acne on like my back, chest, shoulders sometimes. Thankfully though, you know, acne on my face is cleared up. I'm not a teenager anymore, but you would never accuse me of taking PEDs, even though I am in, not to toot my own horn, in good shape, because I don't have a big bull neck, I don't have like veins popping out everywhere, and I'm not like in the most incredible shape ever, you know what I mean? It's pretty obvious I'm not on PEDs. Now you take someone like Ryan Garcia himself, and I'll use two combat sports athletes as an example. Now, one of them, and my reason for actually making this video, is Ryan Garcia himself. It's very obvious, to me at least, that he was taking PEDs. The dude's neck was like friggin' huge. The guy, what else, man? I mean, he very clearly put on mass. Even from the Oscar Duarte fight to the Haney fight, he very clearly put on mass. Dude went from being a string bean to being like huge, you know what I mean? Like damn near being the same size as Haney. He also, well, that's the telltale signs for him, at least physically. Another combat sports athlete that very clearly is taking PEDs is Kamaru Usman from the UFC. The dude's very clearly taking PEDs. Dude's neck is huge. He's got acne all over his body, veins everywhere. Another sign of PEDs I forgot to mention before is the dude's head is massive. It's very clearly bloated from the steroid use. Evander Holyfield, his neck literally is like swollen to a disgusting degree. His head's huge, veins everywhere. Very clearly put on mass from cruiserweight to heavyweight. You know, just three examples I could think of. Telltale signs in performance, I mean, that one's pretty self-explanatory. If a guy's hitting harder, if the dude's faster, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Dude's taking PEDs, that should be pretty self-explanatory. Not much needs to be said with that. Now for the second part to this whole equation. What can be done to fix such an issue? One of the biggest sports in the world. Now, I have a couple of different solutions. Obviously, you know, I have probably better reach on this channel than I did on my old channel, but clearly my bread and butter are the fighter breakdowns and the fight breakdowns. Obviously, people don't really tune into me as much to see my boxing politics videos, but I figured, you know, given everything that's been happening in the sport lately, it's about just overdue for me to make one of these videos. But regardless, one of the solutions is UFC's former drug collecting agency, USADA, make the drug collection or the specimen collection involuntary, as in give no warning when the specimen collectors will come. Stricter penalties, that which were done to Ryan Garcia, and don't soft shoe it like Canelo. You know, that Canelo also is a drug cheat. In the second Triple G fight, you know, had to be postponed and put off 6 months. Canelo is obviously the quote-unquote face of boxing, so obviously they're going to go a little easier on him. Ryan Garcia, on the other hand, is just a bigger boxer with like just a big social media following, so obviously he might bring in a lot of money like Canelo, but he does not mean nearly as much to the sport as Canelo, so, you know, they definitely dropped the fucking hammer on him. I mean, there's no doubt in anybody's mind about that. unless you're like a big-time Haney fanboy and you think Haney's loss should be turned to a win, which even Haney himself didn't think that should have happened, you know. But anyway, let's continue. Recourse for the victim, which is also what they did to Haney. They paid Haney part of Garcia's part of the purse split. Garcia was the A side, I believe, even though Haney was the champion, because people that are casuals do know who Haney is, but they don't really, not nearly as well known across social media as Garcia. Definitely, if you know Haney, you're more of a hardcore boxing fan. But, you know, recourse for the victim, compensation, medical bills, part of the other fighter's purse, things of that nature. I mean, they didn't go above and beyond with Haney like that, but, you know, things of that nature. So, one of the final points I want to make is how to move forward as a sport with major cheaters. In my opinion, the only way to properly move forward as a sport with major cheaters plaguing the sport is simply to not give them the light of day. You know, Ryan Garcia, don't pay for his next pay-per-view, don't watch his fights. Maybe outside of highlights, don't watch his fights. He's really not worth it. I mean, I know this video is not related exactly, completely about Ryan Garcia, but on some real shit, I knew this guy was a fucking punk from the start, man. His win over Luke Campbell, basically a shot Luke Campbell that had already been taken through the ringer by a prime Lomachenko and a prime Jorge Linares. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, like, and then he knocks him out with a body shot. He had never been stopped before. Even Paulie Malignaggi, who's a pundit that I respect a lot, he's been suspicious of Ryan Garcia for the longest. Ever since his fight, I forgot, it was like some journeyman that had never been stopped. Ryan Garcia was consistently stopping almost everyone he had fought up to that point. Even guys like world-class guys, basically like Luke Campbell, that had never been stopped. You know what I mean? It's just, he was suspicious from the start, and I knew he was kind of a hype job, and the Haney fight indirectly proved that. Now, time for the final thoughts / outro. We may never completely get rid of cheaters in combat sports and sports in general. However, severely punishing athletes such as Ryan Garcia is a step in the right direction. Even though I think Haney might be just as guilty, I think punishing Garcia is a step in the right direction for the sport. Not going easy on cheaters is a step in the right direction for the sport. This is Fightsci signing out.